Last week we talked about internal attitudes. Statement number 1 are the key to successful negotiation of temptations. Okay, it's how we view them, and that's where these 3 verses starts off with. Believers should never divide life's experiences into categories of good and bad, because anytime that God allows us to go through something, anytime that God allows us to go through anything, it's a good thing in the sight of God. And remember we talked about last week that count it all joy. The words count it there, that's a forward thinking. It means that you're not looking at the temptation in front of you, you're looking at the end of it and what God is going to teach you through it. So when we're able to look at it that way, instead of the onslaught of the pressure and the stress, we look at it like, no, we're in class. Class is in session, and as I get through this, and as God takes me through it, the end is going to be a great time. Because A, it'll be over, but really B, the more important issue is that I will have learned. God will have taught me something here that I get to take with me now. So temptation number 3 is a normal part of this fallen world, and we will fall into it. Remember we talked about it's not backsliding into sin. It means that every day we're plunged into a world of sin. That's what that means when you fall into diverse temptations. It's a world that is full of temptation. And every day that when we leave that house, and really every day that when we wake up, and if we watch a little TV, there's going to be temptation there. And so we are plunged into it. And that's what the words fall into mean, that we are plunged into a world of temptation. And all right, so that kind of brings us up to date on tonight. I do want to say, as a part of that, of the statement there, number 3, that we talked about in Proverbs chapter 4, the Bible commands us, and God says, look, do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, and pass away. God says, look, don't even go. If at all possible, do not even go to places that you know you're going to be tempted at. Just don't put yourself under that. And because you see, when you read in Proverbs chapter 7, you see the fall of the simple one. All right, the simple sees temptation because he didn't follow the principles in Proverbs 4. The simple one, the unknowing one, the unlearned one, just went right on by that corner where the harlot is. So he sees the temptation. He hears the temptation as she speaks to him. He begins to imagine the wonderful in his mind. That temptation is a chance to, I hate to use these words, but people that get tempted and beguiled by it, it seems like a better choice. It seems like a good choice is the temptation. So he imagines the temptation as being something good, and then yields to the subtle or the craftiness of temptation. Now, point number 4, the diverse temptations that we're talking about here come in a variety of colors. And I'm going to read that. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. The diverse temptations come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes, and are used by Satan to beguile us. Okay, so they come in a variety of colors. If you study the word diverse, it has as part of its meaning different colors, if you will, and the Greek word does there. The Greek word is poikilos, all right, and it has a meaning of a variety of colors. And all that means is that temptation comes in all different colors. That just means in all different shapes, sizes, forms, and colors. The same temptation may not always be colored the same. If it was, we would always see it for what it we would learn, well, I know that temptation is this color, and by color I just mean it looks this way. But the devil has many snares, and the devil has many pitfalls, and they're the same, but they look different. Because he knows as God allows us to go through the temptation, God is testing us and training us and teaching us. So he knows the next time that he wants to present the same temptation to us, it's got to look differently. It's got to, it can't be something that we immediately look at and say, yeah, I've seen that. I know what that's all about. So temptations come in different varieties and shapes, sizes, and so forth. And in Proverbs chapter 7, the simple one that went the way of the harlot, the first thing that he saw said that the harlot dressed in a very provocative way, right? Dressed with the attire of a harlot, it says. What does that mean, provocative? So we are often tempted right here by the eyes, and a temptation tried to gain a foothold through sight. Initially, what did Eve? Eve saw the fruit and that it looked good. David saw Bathsheba and lusted after her. Peter saw the waves as he was tempted and was tempted to doubt. I mean, after he crawled out of the boat, when he was fixed on Jesus, he got out of the boat. But when he got out there and was walking on the water, walking on the water, he then started to look around and said, wait a minute. And so he saw, and that caused him to doubt. Walter Johnson. How many people know Walter Johnson? Black gentleman that's about 6'3", 6'4", blind man, and joined the church here, I don't know, a year and a half or so ago. I try to get up to see him about once a month, and I guess I don't always make it that frequently, but I try to. And here's the thing. We were talking the other day, and we were just talking, we're chatting about temptation, about the world and the temptation in the world. And I was going to say, being blind, you have an advantage on us. But I thought, I'm not going to say that because it's easy for me to say because I'm not blind. So I didn't. But he said it. He said, and it wasn't the same words, but he basically said, look, I don't face everything that you face because I can't see it. And I said, Walter, I was just about ready to say that, but I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to offend you. Like, I didn't want you to think. He goes, oh, no. He says, I totally agree. He said, I can't see a lot of things that you see. So the devil's has to work overtime in his life because he can't get him to look at things like the devil does us. And so he says, some things I don't have to worry about like you do. When we think, though, when you go back and think of the word divers and you think of color, now just bear with me here. Temptations can come in all sorts of packages and colors. The red color of lust, whether it's a physical lust, whether it's a lust for money, social status, power. The black color of death or of serious illness, financial adversity, anxiety, when everything just seems dark. The green color of what? What's a color green often represent? Jealousy, envy, right? So the green color of money, also jealousy, envy. The blue color, what can the color blue represent as a temptation? What's that? It could be passion. It can also be a discouragement that comes into our lives. It tempts us to turn our backs on the Lord. You know, a blue, when you think of blue, people being blue, they could be discouraged. Yellow is a color of a lack of what? Courage, right? Courage, right? So courage, cowardly, which would be like a lack of faith. And as well as different shades of laziness and anger and being easily offended, pride, low self-esteem. These are all, these and many more temptations come in these different colors and sizes and packages. Now, so diverse temptations is what we're looking at here. Let us look at the word temptation. It comes from the Greek word peirosmos. Trust me, that's how you say it. Which means any outside source that appeals to a weakness in our flesh. Any outside source that appeals to a weakness in our flesh. As temptation focuses on its attempt to get us to experience sin, it attempts to just draw us closer. You know, it just wants us to, look, initially temptation, it's not going to bring you down in one strike, really. All it desires to do is to take your focus on Jesus. Take your focus off of Jesus. Take your focus off of the path. Take your focus off of your plan for that day when you said, I'm going to walk this path, and this is the path that God wants me on today. And as you begin to head toward it, a little temptation right here, just all it initially tries to do is just to distract you. Distract us from this path where we're supposed to be and get us to focus on this. And the end result is to try to get us on that path, which would be a wrong path, okay? And so it just attempts to draw you closer, to fascinate the imagination. You know, look, it's not wrong. It's not wrong to see something and immediately you think, that's wrong. I shouldn't be looking at that. That's a temptation for me, and then turn away from it. That's temptation, but it's not yielding to it. To immediately to see it and to say, I got no business looking at that, so I'm going this route. Temptation says, no, come on, there's no harm in looking. As long as you don't touch, but it's trying to get you to touch too. But it tries to fill your imagination, to capture your imagination. And it has to do that. It has to capture our mind before we make a decision in what we do in our body. It's got to first capture our mind. It wants to get us to take a closer peek. So we're offered the opportunity, but then God says, but I'm going to test you through the temptation. God does not tempt us. Understand, He never tempts anybody with evil. Ever. But he sees that we're going to be tempted, and He allows that to test us, to train us, to educate us. The devil is a pawn of God. Okay, we've got to believe that, folks. We've got to believe that the devil's not out there all big and powerful. And I'm going to say it again. I've said it a few times, but for people to put that meme up that says the devil's winning now, but God wins in the end. No, that's not true. God is winning right now. God is winning right now. The devil can't do anything. He is powerless. But what God allows him to do. And God uses him as a pawn to bring things. Knowing that Satan's going to tempt you, God says, I would never tempt you with evil. Now, Satan's going to do it, and I'm going to allow him to do that because I need to train you. Look, how else is our faith going to be tested? How else? But by, quote, bad things, which one of the points is we're never to say this is good and this is bad, because if you're going through it, it's good. And we are to count it all joy. Because it is an opportunity to learn. It is an opportunity to sit down into SP 101, Spirituality 101. And then some of these are very basic college courses, and then you get to Spirituality 401. That's an upper level course. Then you get graduate courses in maturity and growing spiritually. And God says, every time that I teach you, you're going to carry that learning with you. You're going to carry those lessons with you because I have greater things to teach you. Look, it's not about taking on this weight and just struggling with it and saying, I can stand up with it. And then when it's lifted, just say, yeah, I stood up under it. My faith was tested, and it was proven to be faithful. That's not what it's about. We often think that pressure and stress and struggle and suffering and pain it's all about what we can handle. And it does test our faith, but it also is trying to teach us to handle greater weights. That's the purpose. God's not just throwing a bunch of stuff on us and allowing it to happen and saying, well, see if you can stand up under that. No, he's saying, I'm going to put this on you, and it's going to be tough. But you have the right attitude. Remember, that's what James is trying to teach us straight out of the blocks here, is having the right attitude toward temptation. God says you're going to write this book. It was the first book written of the New Testament. And it's going to go out everywhere, and you're just going to address issue after issue after issue after issue after issue because people are struggling and they don't have Paul's writings yet. They don't have any of the rest of the New Testament. So you're going to send this memo out, and it's going to tell people, number one, here's how you view temptation. That's all these 3 verses are about, is how your perception and your attitude toward temptation. That's what it's about. So temptations, it means any outside source that appeals to a weakness in our flesh. But God also promises us that our attitude, another attitude about temptation is that God promises in 1 Corinthians 10:13, there hath no temptation taken you, but such is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. God says, as you see a temptation, count it all joy, because I want you to see the end result of going through it and what I'm going to teach you that's going to mature you. And then he says, and by the way, as you look at it, and as it seems so heavy, and as it seems so harsh, and as it seems so unfair, remember, I will never allow anything to be put on you that you can't bear through his Spirit. Now, we often get caught on the short end of the stick because we're not abiding in him. But he says, if you're abiding in me and you're abiding in the Holy Spirit, the grace is there. What's the grace? The desire and the power to do the will of God. God says, I will give you the desire to want to make it. I will give you that thing, that courage that rises up and says, we're going to get through this, instead of just begging God to snatch us up out of it. There's no growth in that. When God says, I'll just snatch you out, it's like taking biscuits out of the oven too soon. They're all doughy on the inside. They're not done. So anyway, and then we're also to look at it and through his Spirit, through his power, we understand that, okay, God knows I can get through this through his help. Point number 5, God daily attempts to instruct us in the battles we face in conforming to the image of Jesus Christ. Knowing this, conforming is the word you're looking for there. Knowing this, gnosko, that's the Greek word, and it actually means having the ability to discern or understand the purpose of the test that is through the temptations that are being presented to you. It is to recognize the value of the test. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Knowing this is saying, I have the wisdom to everything that we've talked about so far. I know that God's he's building me. He's testing my faith and teaching me upper level courses and teaching me how to mature in the Christian life and teaching me the right perspective to look at when we are tempted. Conforming, as he conforms us to the image of his Son, as he grows us, as he matures us. Point number 6. Faith is always the issue before works. There are people that will say that the book of James is about works, and it's not. And we're going to see that later on. But right away, the trying of your faith. God says the entire book of James and the entire Christian life is a life of faith. It is not works. In our devotions in the mornings, I'm going to begin a series of devotions on living in the real. And this was a Sunday school curriculum that I taught in my class a couple years ago. and I thought this will make some really good short devotions material for them. Living in the real. And when we live in the real, we are living by faith. And we are to count it all joy, having the forward thinking, looking for the purpose, and knowing this, understanding and discerning God's purpose for the trials, for the temptations, and then the testing of our faith through that. Class is in session. I've already said that. The trial is a test. The trying of your faith, that's a test. The test. It is revealing and teaching us. The lesson will be about our faith, not about our works, not about standing up under it. I can take this. That's not what it's about. It's about trying our faith. It's about bringing patience into our lives. And we're going to talk about that. The testing there, the trying, worketh. The word worketh means to accomplish something in us, not just to see what you can hold up under. It's accomplishing, growing us. Now, what the work is accomplishing in us is the virtue of patience. The word patience means to possess cheerful endurance while abiding under stress. To possess cheerful endurance while abiding under stress. That is the peace that passeth all understanding, Philippians 4:7. That's what patience is. It's when things come your way, and it's being able to say, through the grace of God, and God will not allow this to come upon me unless He knows I can handle it. Through His grace, through His Spirit. Okay, so we need to relax. We need to take a deep breath here and just relax and get a hold of the situation. God's trying to teach me. That's what this is all about. And there's a lesson to be learned here as we go through this. And that gives us a patience. The devil's goal is to steal, kill, and destroy our faith. But God is testing it and teaching us and helping us and teaching us patience. Patience coming through what? Romans says. Tribulation. Patience coming through tribulation. That's what we're talking about here. Through trials, it's temptations, it's the trying of your faith teaches you patience as you go through it. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no, for thou art with me, right? That's patience. That's peace. And God's trying to get us to trust Him more. God's trying to teach us lessons as we go through it, and then counting it as we get through it and look back on it and to go, yeah, okay, I see now. I see what God was trying to teach me. I get it. So the next time you go through, you take that lesson and you say, okay, I am more fit. I have more weapons to use against the wiles of the devil and against the temptation of the devil and against the stress and the struggle and suffering sometimes that comes down upon me. I am more ready for it. So then we can say, along with the psalmist, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. That's peace right in the midst of a valley. How many of you have ever been in a valley? Yeah, that's every one of us, whether you raised your hand or not. Every one of us. And you're either in one now, or you just came out of one, or you're going to go through one. That's just the way of life. And it's God's plan. But God says, I don't want you to go through it afraid. I don't want you to go through it in darkness. I don't want you to go through it questioning. I don't want you to have doubts. As a child of God, I want you to trust me. And I want you to know that I am there with you. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And His grace is sufficient to get us through everything that He's going to allow to come into our lives. A blacksmith holds a piece of iron in the fire until it becomes soft, until it becomes pliable. That's another purpose of temptation, to soften us up, to allow God to teach. As long as we remain hard, as long as we remain a little bit, we bristle at the suffering that God allows in our lives, God can't mold us. That's a stiff-necked way. But God says, as you trust me, as you turn to me, as you just try, as you just relax under it, God says, and become pliable, that's when I can mold you and make you and teach you. Point number 7. We have and will always have choices to make in our acceptance of God's instruction. But let, the Bible says, but let patience have her perfect work. James is saying, and God is saying through James, you have a choice. You can buck up under it. You can get mad over it. You can look at me and point your finger at me and tell me I'm not fair. You have the choice. The choice is ours. And James is saying, but make the right choice. But let patience have her perfect work. The trying of your faith worketh patience. What does it mean? That the perfect work of patience is to make us complete, mature. You ever wanted to see a Red Sea miracle? Well, you can't have a Red Sea miracle until the armies of Pharaoh are bearing down on you. You ever wanted to be resurrected? Well, you have to die first. You ever wanted to see the walls of Jericho, the Jericho walls in your life that are seemingly insurmountable? You want to see them crumble? Well, you have to experience them first. We'll never see any death-defying miracles without furnaces and without dens of lions. We have choices, and we need to allow God to have his way in our lives, allow him to bring us under testing. And the testing will much of the time be in the form of temptations and the devil's work in your life, in our life. And God says he's just a pawn. I'm just using him to test your faith, to teach you, to grow you, to mature you, to give you the peace of God in your life, to make you patient, to make you complete and mature. Point number 8, the work of patience is geared in God's mind to make us complete and mature. Complete and mature. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing, lacking nothing. That's what that means. We need to stop stressing out. We need to trust him. We need to stop cringing under the weight, straining under the pressure. Look, when that happens, when we look at it as this physical test, and this, God just wants to see what I can take. Well, God doesn't. He knows what you can take. It's not proving anything to him. We're revealing our faith to ourselves. But when we just stop and bow up and say, I'm not gonna curse God and die. Well, you have to stop to do that. And God says, I don't want you to stop. I want you to stay on target. Stay on target. It's going to come. I want you to relax. Learn the patience that you can learn through this. The patience and the peace comes from trusting him, come from him teaching us that getting through this and not begging to be snatched up out of it, but getting through this is going to teach us, it's going to mature us, it's going to conform us, it's going to cause us to be a Christian that lacks in no area. Spiritually strong, spiritually mature through the grace of God. We have to keep moving. We can't just stop. You can't just stop life when tough times come into your life. You can't just stop. and just say, well, I'll just stop right here. No, we got to keep moving. Sometimes you don't move as quickly as you were. Sometimes you might slow down a little bit, but you have to keep moving. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Not, I'm in the valley, everything's dark, it looks like death all around me, I'm just going to sit down until it passes. And God says, no, you sit down, you're going to stay right there in it. We need to walk through it. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Peace. Patience. God teaching you patience and trusting Him, confiding in Him, depending on Him, not in your own strength to get up in the morning sometimes and you just go to Him and say, I can't do this. And God says, I know. I know you can't, but we can. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. That's all I'm trying to teach you. Take me with you wherever you go. I'm there. Realize I'm there. Take full advantage of me, of my wisdom, of my discernment, my judgment, my strength, my power, my peace. Jesus told Peter, you keep your eyes on me and you can walk on that water. And he did until he looked to the left or to the right and saw the waves. Then he began to sink. We need to keep our focused on Jesus and allow Him to have His complete work done in our lives. Spiritual maturity. Okay. We got through those 3 verses, and we're going to continue on there. Next week we'll be talking about wisdom and achieving and gaining wisdom there. And so anyway, I hope that helps you. Let's have a word of prayer and we'll be dismissed. Father, thank you for your word and thank you for the opportunity that we have on a Wednesday night to really break it down, and to dig in it. And I hope our people, I hope they appreciate the teaching that you have for us. And I pray that we'll learn from it, and I pray that we'll look at temptations differently, and we'll look at them as opportunities to grow and to mature and to trust you more, which brings peace in our life and patience. We'll have adversity, we'll have temptations, we're plunged into it every day of our life. Lord, help us to depend on you and allow you to teach us as we go through it. We love you. Protect our people. Watch over them. Please watch over them. Deliver them safely at home. And bless them throughout the rest of this week. May they look to you early and often through every day for your grace and to live their lives through the grace of God, through the power of your Spirit. We love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.